Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to give you a quick overview of scripting in PlayCanvas and how scripts work, and then in the next tutorial we'll actually start to write our own code in our scripts so that we can actually start to control the game. So we'll start to use code to move objects around and use the keyboard to move something, so to use the arrow keys to move left and right and up and down, and use the mouse as well to move around the scene. So that's what we'll do later on, not in this tutorial. But in this tutorial we will look at what scripts are, how to create a script, and what the different parts of the script mean. Okay, so in your assets panel you'll notice that all your different objects like materials and images that you might have uploaded, they're all there, and you'll have a scripts folder. Okay, and in the scripts folder, that's where you keep your script files. And in PlayCanvas, when we code using the JavaScript language. So any code that you write will be in a script, and that script will contain JavaScript code. All right, and scripts are files, or JavaScript files end in .js. So you can see we've got an image here of a grass texture, and that is grass.jpg, so it's a JPEG image. A JavaScript file is named in the same way. You'll have your file name, whatever the script is called, and then .js. Okay, so .js is on the end of that file name. So if you go into your scripts folder, I've already got a couple of scripts in there that I've been using for my games. So I'm just going to create a new script for this tutorial to show you how to do that. So next to assets, click on add asset and then script, and you need to give it a name. Alright, so I'm just going to call this test, and it needs to end in .js. Alright, so hit enter or return, and that will create your new JavaScript file. Okay. Now a JavaScript file can be, because it's an asset, it can be applied to an entity. So a script or JavaScript script or file can be applied to different entities in your scene. So for example, and this will be an example that we use in the next tutorial, say you have a box in your scene and you want to use the keyboard to move that box around. So if you press the left key, it will move the box left. If you press the right key, it will move the box right, and so on. So you can use the keyboard to move objects around. Okay, so say if you want to make a script and write some code to control this box and to move it around using the keyboard, you can go to the box entity and you can add a script for that box. So you can click on add script, and then you can pick the script that you want to use that's going to have the code controlling this box. So I just added this test script to the box, and although there's no code in there at the moment, when there is code added to it, it will start to control this box entity. Alright, so the other way that you can do it is just drag the script on there underneath scripts, and it will add that script to it. So if you click on the script and then go to edit, it will open up the code editor in a new window. Alright, and this is what you'll see when you create a new script. There'll already be a little bit of code in it to get you started, and that's what I'm going to go through today. Alright, so firstly, you have pc.script.create, and then you have the name of the script, which was test. So if I go back to the editor, just remember I called this test.js. So the name of the script is test, and then we have function app. Alright, now if you haven't done any JavaScript coding before, it's not a bad idea to go and watch my JavaScript tutorials so you can get a better understanding of the language. But the way these tutorials are going to work is I'll just assume that you don't have any experience coding in JavaScript. So I'm going to show you how to code in JavaScript, but I won't go into too much detail on how JavaScript works. If you want to know more about JavaScript in detail, then go and watch the JavaScript tutorials. Okay? But basically, this is the start of it. We've got a function here, and all of this script is, we've got a script here, and all of this script is contained inside these two curly brackets. So we've got a curly bracket here, and then we've got one down here as well. Alright, notice that there's a normal bracket here as well that's open, and then it closes down here too. So all that you need to know for the moment is that this line needs to be here. It'll be in every script, and it contains the name of the script, and then function, app, and then make sure that you close off those brackets down the bottom. So everything inside these brackets is code that belongs to this script. Okay, then we have 2 forward slashes here. Anywhere where you see a line that has 2 forward slashes, it's just a comment in the code. So it doesn't actually run in the program. You can type whatever you want on those lines and it won't make any difference to the program. You just write comments to give some information or explain what the code does, or maybe at the top of your code you could add a comment with your name and the date that you wrote the code and information like that. Okay, but this is saying that we're creating a new test instance or a new script instance, all right, because the script is called test. We've got a variable here, all right, and a variable is something, it's like a container that can store information. So a variable can hold information throughout a program, and this variable is called test with capital T, and the variable is actually storing a function. All right, so function is like a set of instructions that you can write for the program, and then you can call those instructions throughout your program. All right, so a function can contain heaps of code with different instructions, and then when you want to use that those instructions, then you just call that function. All right. Then we have this dot entity equals entity. So all of this so far, all of this section here, will be the same in every script that you create, pretty much. So you'll always see this when you create a new script. The only difference that you'll see normally is that the script name will be different. Okay, so whatever you call the script, whatever file name you give it, will be different and it will show up there. Okay, but apart from that, all of that should be the same. So we don't need to know too much about that really at the moment. Okay, when we get into some more advanced coding, we can go into more detail about that. All right, now we have test.prototype, and then inside that we have some more code. So notice when we have a bracket here, like an open curly bracket, it must be closed at some point, and the code editor will actually underline the matching bracket that closes this bracket. All right, so we've got an underline here, and then when we click inside this bracket here, we can see there's another one down here. All right, so everything, we've got test.prototype and everything contained inside those brackets here. All right, there's 2 things inside these brackets. We have initialize function, and then we have update function. All right, so if you get anything from this video, if nothing's making sense so far, that's okay if you haven't done any JavaScript coding before. But what's really important, really at the moment, to know is these 2 things. All right, so if you know these 2 things, then you'll be fine for the moment. All right, what initialize function does is basically initialize. So this section of the code, anything that goes inside these 2 curly brackets, will be called, so any instructions, any code that you write will be called once at the beginning of the program. So when all the resources for the program are loaded, or for the game are loaded, it will be called once. All right, so if there's anything that you need to do, any instructions that the game needs to follow that you've written, anything that you need to do, any instructions that need to be followed at the beginning of the game as soon as it loads, then you put that code inside this section here, the initialize section. Okay, so we've got initialize function and then all the code that goes inside the initialize section. All right, so you could write lines of code in there. At the moment there's nothing, but anything that needs to happen at the start of the game can go in there. Then we have this section here, update function. All right, and the code again goes inside these curly brackets. All right, so you could write your code here for the update section. All right, but at the moment there's nothing in it. The difference between the initialize section and the update section is that the update section, so any code that is inside update, any instructions that you write in there, will be called every single frame during the game. All right, and you'll see DT inside these brackets, and that's the time in seconds since the last update. All right, you don't need to worry about that for now. what you need to know is that the update section is called all the time during the game, every single frame that runs during the game. So code or instructions in your game that you need to run constantly, and you need it constantly running throughout the game. So for example, if you had code that says when the left arrow key on the keyboard is pressed, your character moves left. If you have code like that that needs to run constantly throughout the game, then it should be in the update section. All right? It shouldn't be in the initialize section because code in the initialize section only runs once at the beginning of the game. All right? Code in the update section runs constantly over and over again during the game when it's needed. All right? And then lastly, so that bracket's closed, and the bracket for test.prototype is closed. And then lastly, we have return test, all right, which basically returns everything from this function that's needed. So we need this line here, otherwise nothing will really happen. And then we have the last closing brackets down here that were started up the top here. So we have a bracket here, an open bracket here, and then it is closed down here, and then we have another open bracket up here, a curly bracket, which is closed down here. So wherever you put a bracket, if you open a bracket, you must also close it, all right? So you can't leave any brackets missing out there, all right? Every instruction in JavaScript will usually end with a semicolon. Sometimes you'll see a comma instead of a semicolon in your code, and we'll talk about that in a future tutorial. Alright, so if you haven't done any coding before, you've never used JavaScript, and you're not sure what all of it means, it's a good idea to have a look at the JavaScript tutorials. But if you don't, that's fine. All that you really need to take away from this tutorial is to know what the initialize section does. So it's code, whatever code that you write inside the initialize section, it just runs at the beginning of the game once. And the update section. So any code you write inside the update section, it's called every frame during the game, constantly, and it's code that you want to run constantly during the game that goes inside that section. All right. If you can take away that, and you can take away that this section is just stuff that really needs to be there to set up the game and to get it running, or to get this script to run, and it's pretty much the same in every code. It's already there when you create a new file. And the only thing that's different in each one really is the name of the script. You can take that away, then that's enough for this tutorial. And the next tutorial, we'll be looking at how to use keyboard input to move things around and control the game a little bit. All right. From there, then we'll look at mouse input. We'll look at using code to control the camera, to look around the scene in your game, and to move a first-person character. And then from there, we'll go on to interacting with objects in the game. So being able to click on things, or being able to run on things, and have events occur in your game. All right, that's all for today. Thanks for watching.